everybody, and welcome here to our 11th episode. Today is May the 11th, so that's kind of interesting. The 11th episode falls on May the 11th, but I thought that was kind of cool. However, when I started this podcast, I didn't think I'd get 11 episodes deep. It was kind of just something meant to be for fun, and it still is. And quite frankly, it's been actually a real learning experience. It's been something that I've kind of enjoyed and come to really like. I've learned a lot. I'm continuing to learn and kind of just open my mind up to a lot of different things. So it's been a great experience thus far. We've had a lot of great guests on the show so far. We've had Lizzie Anderson, who is a fitness coach. I enjoyed speaking with her and learning about some really cool stuff. We've also had Frank King on, who brought mental awareness or mental health awareness to the forefront. So I thought that was a really great guest to have on. And then most recently we had Rihanna Milne on, who was the love coach, who also had some really just wonderful stuff and good insight. So I have a bunch more guests planned coming up. The next couple of weeks, we'll have a guest on the show, which I'm really looking forward to. I will tell you guys who our next week's guest is towards the end of the show tonight, but we do have more guests lined up. But tonight, I wanted to do something a little bit differently and kind of take a step back from having a guest on, kind of talk about a few things that have been transpiring over the past couple of weeks. So we're going to get into that, but also I wanted to kind of get back a little bit to some of the other things that we were doing, talking about some of the stocks and just some news related stuff as well. So we'll get right into tonight's show. The first thing we're going to talk about is some stocks and go over some of the picks that we had previously discussed. I know that there was we on the show previously on the show we've talked about 4 particular stocks that I think would be great for your portfolio. Now I kind of just want to give you an update on what's going on with these stocks, maybe provide a little bit more insight to those, and kind of just do a checkup on those. So the first one that we have here, which we've talked about in the past, is Delta Airlines. Now, Delta has been struggling. There's a bunch of headwinds, or several headwinds, that's facing the airline industry at the moment. The first thing that I want to say about the airline industry, or actually before we even get into that, I'll say one thing. Every stock that I have suggested would be good for the portfolio. This is just suggestions. Like I've said in the past, I'm not a stock expert or somebody who has a finance degree or anything like that. These are basically just my personal opinions, things that I like in my portfolio, and I try to give you reasons as to why. Now, there's several headwinds that Delta and the airline industry as a whole is facing right now. So they're definitely struggling. But one of the things that I want to bring up is that this industry in the airlines industry is probably going to be the last industry to fully recover from this whole pandemic and the shutdown and all of that stuff, especially as traveling is still kind of been pushed aside. So they're going to take some time to recover, and these particular stocks that I've shared with you guys are all meant to be long-term investments. These aren't short-term, make few quick bucks and get out of there. You know, it's going to be, it's all short-term stuff. You know, it's nothing that's going to be make a few dollars real quick and get out of there. You know, this is all long-term investments. Now, like I said, they're going to be probably the last to fully recover from the whole pandemic. But one silver lining that I kind of took note of as far as the airline industry goes is the current low oil prices could mean lower jet fuel prices, you know. Now, I will say that just because the prices are low now, it seems the airlines aren't able to take full advantage of those low prices. So these prices, the oil prices, will have to remain kind of low for quite some time before you see any significant gain or any benefit to these airlines. But it's just kind of something to think about. And as you can see here, the last 30 days, they've remained pretty much steady and consistent over the period here. I mean, they are down, let's see, they were at $23.25 on April the 13th. Now, that, just basically 30 days ago, a couple days shy of that. So they are a little bit down from that, but overall, they're remaining fairly consistent. We'll see and continue to monitor their situation on Delta Airlines, but I haven't changed my position on it in the long run. I think over the long period, it will be a good investment. Now, moving forward, we also have Carrier. Now, Carrier is one that that's kind of been doing pretty well. Like I said, it recently offered did its IPO, its initial public offering, not too long ago. So they're still fairly new. They're still just getting into the game as far as a publicly traded company goes. They've been around for ages, but they're just now kind of doing their whole public offering situation. So with Carrier, there's a lot of speculation going on about this particular company. I've been monitoring it pretty closely, but the speculation is that it's undervalued. I have that position. Like, I've basically seen the stock is undervalued. A lot of other people have seen the stock is undervalued. In fact, there's an analyst from JP Morgan. His name is Steven Tusa. And he sees Carrier as undervalued as well. And he also labeled it as a once in a generation buying opportunity. This is an analyst from JP Morgan. Now, his quote, this is a quote that he had. This was his spiel on Carrier. I'll read the quote to you. It says, "The stock is cheap. It's at 10 times through EPS, the only one in its sector at that level, with a discount of 65% versus directly comparable peers, which is rarely seen. The basis for our view that the stock could double over the next 12 months, Tusa wrote." So basically what he's saying is that Carrier is 65% cheaper than its peers that are its direct competitors. So competitor companies are trading at much higher prices than Carrier. So he sees Carrier as a discounted stock to pick up and add to your portfolio, and dubbed it a once in a generation opportunity. So I thought that was a great way of looking at it, because when you look at a company when he refers to peers or a competitor, he's talking about somebody like Trane. Trane is another one in the heating and cooling industry along with Carrier. And you see here their stock price is at $80.98. So when you look at Trane, they're a direct competitor of Carrier, and they're at $80. So when you look at a stock like Carrier, which is at $18.35, it kind of looks very attractive. It's fairly cheap, and it's just now coming out in its initial public offering. So it's kind of, you're getting in at the entry level while you can still buy it at a really good price. So that's, what I like about Carrier. I do see them as an undervalued company, and I'll continue to monitor what they're doing. But we'll also keep going. Another one we had discussed in the past was Norwegian Cruise Lines. Now, Norwegian, they are going through a real debacle. Between the airlines and the cruise lines, it's hard to say which one's getting it worse. The cruise lines is definitely a struggling industry. And again, I want to reiterate, all of these investments that I'm suggesting are all long-term investments. They're not ones that you're going to pick up today and make, quick money and be out tomorrow. These are ones that you want to put in your portfolio, hold on to them, and over time, I'll expect that you'll see some really nice gains. Now, that's just my predictions. Doesn't mean that I'm right, but this is just what I personally believe. But you look at Norwegian, they've been fairly consistent. You do see a big bump up between April 29th and May 4th. Now, the thing with the reason why I'm sticking with Norwegian and saying that still believing in what they have to offer is because Norwegian is working with the CDC to basically establish good practices, not only during the virus now, but also as they begin to offer services and continue to get the industry back going again. They're working with the CDC to establish good habits, to work on creating a safer environment, not only in the now, but also moving forward and going into the future. So I kind of like that about them, working with with the CDC to make sure that passengers are safe and everybody is taken care of. So that's a good sign. That's a positive thing. Now, there is other things going on with Norwegian. According to something I read, there could be a class action lawsuit brewing up related to the virus, I believe. I will continue to monitor that, but I'm not just going to stray away from Norwegian. I still like them as a holding, having in your portfolio. I think it's a great one to continue to. It's a great one to continue to have. I'm not going to shy away from Norwegian. Another one, the last one that we'll take a look at. This is the final. Well, actually, I have another one after this, but we have Kohl's. Now, everybody's familiar with Kohl's. Kohl's is a great stock to have. There has been a lot of speculation that Kohl's may not make it through the pandemic because they had shut down so many of their stores and locations, and it's hard to say for sure. But there's a couple of things that I want to note. Well, today's May 11th. I believe that Kohl's is set to open, I think, 10 or more stores today, and I want to say Texas. I'm not 100% sure on that. I could be wrong, but they're beginning to open stores up in accordance with each state's guidelines as to certain retail stores opening. So they're trying to follow those guidelines, but they are starting to pick up steam and starting to open up more locations. But one thing that I think people tend to forget is that Kohl's does have a partnership with Amazon. Now, Amazon doesn't outright own Kohl's, or there hasn't been an acquisition of Kohl's, but they are partnered. They are in what some people would call in bed together. So a lot of people would say, well, why doesn't Amazon buy Kohl's? Which has been raised the question. Amazon may buy Kohl's. No one really knows. That's all speculation. But I do want to point out, I read an article from the Motley Fool, and it says that the two companies could certainly deepen their partnership without fully joining forces. Still, an acquisition could make sense, as Kohl's has over 1,100 stores that Amazon could use as leverage, meaning that they could use those Kohl's locations. Amazon could use those Kohl's locations for various things, whether I guess it could be retail or in-store shopping or something like that. So I've always been one that kind of believes that Amazon may purchase Kohl's at some point, but that's all speculation. I don't have any proof to back that up. I don't think anyone does. It's all speculation. But Amazon doesn't necessarily need to buy Kohl's because they're doing great on their own. But it does make sense that they could utilize those locations, and I think that would be something quite interesting to see. But I want to, we've been talking about all these stocks here, but I want to introduce something new here, a newer one, which is an ETF. Now, ETFs operate a lot differently than a stock. We have what is known as Gush. Now, Gush is an ETF. If you're not familiar with what an ETF is, an ETF, I'll read a definition of it. ETF is a type of security that involves a collection of securities such as stocks. That's the definition. To break it down for you a little bit more simpler and kind of, I hope I'm able to explain this properly, but ETF, look at it as like one central place, okay? Like, so Gush is one central place, and underneath it, branching off into different little legs or little segments, are companies. So matter of fact, let me pull up this here. So these particular companies, you see WPX Energy, Whiting Petroleum Corp, Apache Corp, EQT Corp, Calon Petroleum, all of these companies down here that I'm kind of trying to highlight for you guys, these are the top 8 holdings of this ETF, which make up Gush. So you have a bunch of different companies where when you invest, let's say right now it's at $37.49. When you invest at $37.49, that money will be split up into a percentage of in each of those companies. So your money is getting spread out across a bunch of different companies, which an ETF can be a good thing. It's not always a great thing, but an ETF can be a good thing because let's say WPX is having a very bad month, but all the other companies are doing really well, then your stock, your ETF, the money that you have in Gush will remain at a good level because it has a little bit of leverage and a little bit of wiggle room, because if a couple companies are doing bad but the other few are doing great, then it balances out. And that's why I kind of like ETFs. So I really like the Gush ETF. Another reason why I want to bring it up is you look at the chart here and you're probably thinking, well, wow, it looks like it's tanked. Like, what's going on with Gush? It looks down really low. Well, they're in the oil industry. And right now, the oil industry is taking a big hit because essentially what has happened is with all the traveling and everything coming to a halt, the industry basically has more oil than it can put out or provide. So basically they have all this oil in tanks and just sitting there basically waiting to be consumed. And it's basically where they're producing oil with nowhere to put it because all the storage containers and everything is completely full, so it's kind of dropped the price. That's why you're seeing gas prices as low as they are right now, because there's little demand but a really high supply. So the prices of oil is really low, which is you're seeing that with the extremely low gas prices right now. So when you look at this, though, as people begin to travel, as the jetliners, cruise industry begins to open up, you could see the demand for the gas or oil to go back up. And I see that that's why I selected this Gush ETF to add to your portfolio, because we will, things will begin to open up as beaches begin to open, people want to travel, and all of this stuff happens. You're going to see that demand for fuel to go up, and oil as well. And then also another thing why I suggested adding this to your portfolio, because if you are worried that the airline industry is going to not benefit from the low oil prices now on jet fuel, let's say the prices go up and the airline industry's margins are getting really small because they're paying these high prices for oil. And you're like, well, Kevin, I thought you said that the low oil prices could be good for jetliners, but the prices have gone up. Now the airline industry is struggling because the oil prices are so high. Well, if that is the case, having an ETF like Gush in your portfolio will help balance that out as well, because if the airline industry is not doing well but oil is really up and you have this ETF in your portfolio, that's going to really help you leverage it. So that's just something that I kind of wanted to bring attention. Hopefully that made sense to you guys. Like I said, I'm not a stock expert. I don't have every answer, but I try my best and I try to make common sense of things and break it down. So if you have any questions or anything like that, always feel free to reach out to me. I love talking about this stuff and kind of discussing some different companies, what I think, what you might think. So you can comment it down. If you're on YouTube, you can comment to me, or Facebook, iTunes, I'm on Spotify. All of my contact information is in those, so you can always reach out to me. So I'll pass that question off to you guys and kind of let you decide, and you can always reach out to me if you have any questions on that. Now, the next segment that we're going to get into, because that's all I have for the stocks right now, is some entertainment news. Now, we have Adele in the news, who, if you're familiar with Adele, a great singer. She's got a powerful voice. I'm a fan of hers. I think she has some great music. Now she has completely done a transformation, I guess you could call it. She has lost a bunch of weight, and it's got the internet just going basically nuts right now. The internet has just been wild. It's just all kinds of different opinions on her weight loss. And what I'll do is I'll actually bring up a photo here. Give me just a second. We'll bring this up. So here's the photo that she recently posted. Now, when you look, I'll just bring it up. Here we have in the top corner here a picture of Adele. But when you look, that was her at, I guess maybe her biggest weight. But now you look at this photo that she recently posted, and she has lost so much weight. And it's got a little hourglass figure there. I think it's amazing that she went into quarantine, took advantage of this time to really focus on herself and struggle. If she's struggling with weight issues, she just went all out and lost all this weight. Now it's interesting because, like I said, she's been receiving a little bit of backlash, but also people who have been commenting on her post saying, "Oh, Adele, you look beautiful, you look amazing, you look great, you look fantastic." Well, some people are saying, "Whoa, well, not too quick. You guys shouldn't be saying that, because basically what you're saying is she wasn't beautiful before when she was big. You shouldn't be saying that she's looks great now because she looked great before." And there's an argument for that. I'm not totally against that, but you can't deny that after losing all that weight, that one, she's more healthier. I think that's the most important thing to talk about, because, being overweight is just unhealthy. It's simple as that. Doesn't necessarily mean you're even if you're skinny that you're really healthy. I drink a lot of soda and snack foods and stuff. I got, and I'm not exactly the healthiest guy, and I'm fairly skinny. But the point being is that, she is probably a lot healthier by losing this weight, and to me, much more attractive. Now, that may be, shallow of me to say, maybe. I don't know. If I don't like to use that term, because I believe, matter of fact, I'll bring up, let's look here. There's a definition of beautiful, if you can see this. So the definition of beautiful is pleasing the senses or mind aesthetically. So that's the definition of it. So you have to think to yourself, they're good. There's an old saying that beauty is the eye of the beholder. So what I may think is beautiful, and that may be a smaller figure girl, and another person may say, "Hey, the chubby girls, that's my thing. That's what I like." And I'm not going to tell you that she's not beautiful. That's just your take on it. That's what you like. Now, another thing that I kind of wanted to bring up was a lot of people were saying that, matter of fact, let's take a look here. I got a couple of tweets from people. So we'll look at this one. So the first one, this girl says, "The toxic fat shaming and misogyny in the Adele tag is disgusting. Adele was sexy and talented and stylish years ago. So I don't know why so many of you are acting like suddenly she becomes all of those things only now because simply her weight has changed." Now, this is the thing. I don't think people are saying that she all of a sudden is now all of those things. It's all left for interpretation. Whether you thought she was sexy when she was big or when she's small, that's all up for interpretation. As the saying goes, that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What I may think is sexy, the other guy next to me may not. Now, what the talented portion, I totally agree, but I don't think anybody has ever said that she's not talented or more talented because she's skinny. And then they say she was stylish years ago, which I do tend to think that, Adele has always had a nice style to her, but again, that comes with the money and the fame and stuff. You can afford nicer things, and I mean, that's a whole nother story. But this whole rhetoric that believing that because someone lost weight makes them more beautiful, I think and this is just from my standpoint. You may not agree with this, and that's okay. But what I'm going to get at is, if you believe that by losing that much weight and that you don't become more attractive, you're probably in denial. I think you're being, I don't want to call it fake, but I don't believe it to be true. I don't believe it to. I believe that you're more. This is just my personal take on it. It's hard to put into words, but if you're trying to say that you're not more attractive at a skinnier weight, I think that's a denying statement. I just don't know. I'm not really doing a great job of explaining it, but I feel like you're not being truthful if you don't believe that. But we'll keep on looking here, I have another tweet that I wanted to bring up. So this is another one. A girl called Your Fat Friend. I guess that's her Twitter handle, YR Fat Friend. A reminder to all my fellow fat folks with eating disorders and those who have body dysmorphic orders. If the conversation about Adele's weight loss is frustrating, upsetting, outright triggering to your ED or BDD, it's okay to step away from your social media. So, this is another one that's kind of strange because she's saying it's okay to step away from your social media if you're struggling with, Adele losing all this weight and the conversation behind it. First thing I want to say, it's okay to step away from your social media at any time for any reason that you find fit. So I don't know why she's giving permission to do so, but she's saying a reminder to my fellow fats, and that's kind of, I don't know, maybe she's trying to normalize it or make it okay. And I'm not saying that, I'm not being prejudiced towards overweight people because everybody has certain struggles and things that they deal with, whether it's weight or maybe a substance abuse issue, maybe it's, the list could go on. You could have all kinds of different issues. But it's just strange to see that this is the comments and type of stuff that's coming out on people that's congratulating Adele for losing weight. Another one here I got pulled up. So this one says, Adele is trending, and I just came here to remind you that Adele has always been that bitch. Losing weight didn't make her more beautiful, and there's no glow up. She's been a babe forever. Don't disrespect her like that. So one thing that I want to point out is she's saying losing weight didn't make her more beautiful. That may be true. Like I said, it's all in the each person's interpretation of what they deem beautiful. And we've already looked at the definition of beautiful, so I think there's interpretation in there. And then they said there's no glow up. Well, she's certainly healthier. And to me, by looking at her photos, and I'll show you another pic here, and I have a little bit more on this whole glow up thing here that I'll explain real quickly before we get into the next thing. But it says she's been a babe forever and don't disrespect her like that. But Adele hasn't commented on any of this so-called controversy that's going on around her weight loss. She hasn't said anything about the weight or anything. She's kind of stepped away from social media after posting that photo, but saying don't disrespect her like that is assuming that Adele feels disrespected by these words. And you can't say that she feels disrespected without hearing her perspective on it. She may be enjoying it and thinking, wow, that's great. Thank you guys so much for telling me that I look beautiful now that I've lost all this weight. Now, this is the photo I wanted to show you guys because beauty for me means a couple of things. And then one, she looks stunning here, but it's not just because of her weight. When you look at her, she has like this arrogance about her, a certain confidence. She looks to me happier. She's got like this swagger, like, oh, I'm looking fly. She's got this confidence. That also equates to beauty to me, having a certain level of confidence and swagger about you. Now, if you're a heavier set person and can pull that off, then, it could work for you. You know what I mean? But I think it all depends on what you feel on the inside, which helps portray on the outside. I'm doing a terrible job explaining it, but basically I feel like, she has this certain, je ne sais quoi, I think's the word, about her now that she's lost this weight, where she's got this, swagger and demeanor that only adds to her appeal and makes her more attractive. But that's just kind of one thing with Adele that's going on. It's kind of quite interesting. But I do have more in the entertainment news. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide whether I'm not saying it's right or wrong to say she is more beautiful now. I think my point is just it's up to interpretation. And also, whenever somebody does something great like that it's hard to lose weight. One of my goals would be to really get in shape and really get more physically fit. It's difficult to stick to that routine, stick to the demanding schedule, and put in the work that it takes to achieve those goals. And to see somebody do that and see all these comments and all this stuff, I feel like it's taken away from what she has achieved. And that's kind of where I lie with it. But, I pass it off to you. But the next story that we'll get into, I don't know if you guys heard this, is Tom Cruise is actually supposedly going to be doing a movie in space. Apparently he's partnering with NASA and SpaceX, which is founded by Tesla CEO Elon Musk. But apparently, Tom Cruise is supposed to be doing filming portions of a movie from the International Space Station, which I just thought was wild, kind of cool and interesting. But so basically what has came out is that SpaceX is about 3 weeks away from launching humans from the United States to the International Space Station for the first time in 9 years. So if successful, this program is called Commercial Crew. If they're successful, it would then evolve to run operational missions as well as flights carrying private travelers to space, someone like Tom Cruise. So SpaceX and NASA hasn't specified whether Tom Cruise will be a part of one of these flights that are supposed to take place in a few weeks, but that's kind of been the speculation right now, that he'll probably go on one of these flights to the space station to film this movie, but no one really knows if that's true or not. Nobody has really confirmed that. There was a tweet from Elon Musk who said, Elon Musk later on goes on to say, oh, this should be really fun, referring to the movie being shot there. So I thought that was kind of interesting, something to look out for. I just think it's pretty cool to see that, he'll be up there filming a movie. I thought that was quite interesting. But lastly, in entertainment news, the one thing I want to get to is 90 Day Fiancé. There's a bunch of controversies going on around this whole TV show. A lot of people are familiar with Big Ed and Rose. They're kind of the viral couple that you're seeing a bunch of memes made about the guy because he has like a neck issue. It's kind of quite interesting. He's a very insensitive guy to this woman he's pursuing. Her name is Rose. I believe she's from the Philippines. So there's been a whole bunch of controversy surrounding Big Ed and this woman he's pursuing, Rose. And essentially, there's also another controversy brewing up from a guy whose name is Jeffrey Paschal, who apparently made it on the show, but has this extremely long criminal record. And people are saying, how could you put this guy on the show with such a long record? One of the things that that he personally admitted to, I believe on the show, he said something along the lines like, yeah, I sold drugs in the past, but that was in my past and I've moved on from that, and so that you're thinking, okay, well, maybe he learned his lesson. He's becoming a new guy and all of this stuff. And that hey, kudos to you for that. But it's gotten a little bit more severe, and people on the show people who watch the show are essentially kind of getting upset now because a bunch of different information about this Jeffrey Paschal guy has came out. So for example, let's take a look at this. So it says, this is a little snippet from an article I pulled. It says, the current season of 90 Day Fiancé, Before the 90 Days, is still airing new episodes, and fans are having a rough time connecting with the cast this season. Many are unhappy with the casting of the couples. Audience members have tried to have Jeffrey removed from the show due to his lengthy criminal background, but it seems that TLC didn't catch wind of the charges until after they had filmed the season. So this guy Jeffrey has apparently got just a crazy arrest record, but we're going to take a look into more about those cases that he's got going on. Now, I wanted to play a few clips from the show, but unfortunately, I'll get the way YouTube works is they'll take down the video if I play anything from TLC, so I'm not going to be able to play the video, but I do have some audio here to kind of just give you a little context and kind of hear how Big Ed speaks and stuff like that. So I'll play that for you guys and let you hear that.
Don't be mad at me, but last night when I noticed that your legs were kind of like mine, they were hairy. But, yeah.
So real quick, just say that he's asking her to shave her legs, and a lot of the fans of the show got upset with this because what happened was Big Ed, he's got like this scruffy beard, and he asked her for a kiss, and she says, no, you got to shave first because your beard really pricks me and hurts me every time that we kiss. And he's like, well, how about this? I'll make you a deal. if you shave your legs, I'll shave my beard. And a lot of people got upset with Ed for that because it was insensitive to her. He goes on to say, well, your legs are hairy as mine. You need to shave them. And, people got upset with that. So that was the first thing that Big Ed did. Now, the second thing, which I also have a clip of, was Big Ed goes on to tell Rose that her breath stinks and smells. So he goes on and buys her mouthwash, toothpaste, a toothbrush, and all of this stuff. And the reason why people are upset with him, because he frames it as a gift. He's like, hey Rose, I got you some really cool gifts. And she's like, oh, I love gifts. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, blah, blah. So he pulls it out and it's a toothbrush and mouthwash and toothpaste. And, you could see how that's kind of a little insensitive. And he goes on to say, well, your breath stinks. And, so I got you these things. We'll listen to that little snippet here as well.
So I'll make you a deal. If you shave your legs, I'll shave my beard.
Why? They shave my legs.
And I got you a cute toothbrush. Just your breath is not pretty.
So he says your breath is not pretty. And she goes on in defense, to her defense, she says, well, Ed, the reason why my breath is like that is because I have a stomach ulcer and it causes me to have bad breath. It's not that I don't have good dental hygiene. It's because I have this stomach ulcer. It's a chronic issue apparently that she deals with, and it causes her to have bad breath from time to time. But people were upset at Big Ed for this because, again, it shows some insensitivity on his end. So lastly, we got one more little snippet from Big Ed, and this one is kind of the bigger controversy. This is the more troubling thing for people, but we'll play the quick snippet on that.
What?
So last night, remember, you were talking about you wanted more kids. And I want to be honest with you and tell you that I've raised a daughter. She's 29, and it was a wonderful experience. But having more kids is not something that I want. In fact, before I came to see you in the Philippines, I had scheduled 2 appointments to have an operation. It's called a vasectomy.
What? I do not understand.
There's an operation in here where it's a snip. It prevents me from getting you pregnant.
So there's that. So the reason why people are upset with that is because when they first met, Rose they met through Facebook. If you're not familiar through the show, he met his bride-to-be, Rose, on Facebook. They began chatting and had great conversation, and she had always expressed to them that her lifelong dream was to have 2 kids. She has one already, a son. She has one who is a son, but she also wants another kid, and Big Ed essentially knew this from the beginning. And now that he slept with her and tried to change her, I wouldn't even say change her, but try to westernize her, he's under backlash because they're saying, why would you do this to this poor girl? You're bringing her from her country. You knew she wanted to have kids. Now that you slept with her, you want to now tell her that you don't want kids, and you knew this from the beginning. So it's kind of interesting to see that, he chooses now to say this to her. So that's kind of why a lot of people are upset with Big Ed. Now, I'll let you decide whether or not, he's right or wrong. I personally don't agree with his tactics. I do understand where he's coming from in some places, but some of the things that he did, you just, like for the kid thing, I can't get behind. He's just real insensitive. I just don't, he's trying to say that he don't want kids and he done slept with her and done all this stuff. That's just wrong and misleading, and I could see how people were upset with that. But moving on, we have, like I said, that guy Jeffrey Paschal, who people are talking about. This is the guy that everybody's talking about, Jeffrey Paschal. So a lot of stuff has been coming out, and those nipple tats are just weird that's just weird. It's hard for me to look at. I'll have to get that off the screen here in a second. But he's got these nipple tats, and let's take a look. Matter of fact, we'll read what's been going down about this Jeffrey guy, because so here's the first situation. And if you want to check out any of these articles or anything that we discuss or videos that we're going to watch, I put all of the links in the description so you can follow up on that. But it says, right before the newest season premiered, it was reported by Knox News that the reality star had been summoned to court in January due to a 2019 arrest. The arrest occurred after an alleged altercation that turned violent between his girlfriend, as she accused him of dragging her across the floor of their house, smashing her head into a wall. Jeffrey did plead not guilty to these charges, while the woman was granted a restraining order. During the short court appearance, the reality star was legally charged with aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, and interference with emergency calls. So this guy's got some clear issues going on, and basically what the fans of the show are saying, why was this guy let onto the show? Why did they allow him to be put on where he's essentially, been accused of violently attacking his wife? It also goes on, there's another situation. It gets a little worse for Jeffrey. Second one is Jeffrey's second wife filed court documents in 2004 accusing her husband of physical assault. The document also claimed that there were medical records to back up her statements. The ex-wife also claimed that he assaulted her in front of their children. Hidden among a plethora of charges was also the accusation that Jeffrey had raped his ex-wife multiple times. The ex-wife testified that the reality star told her he was going to take her life. So that's kind of alarming to a lot of people to say, how could this guy be let on the show? Now, TLC goes on to say, well, he kind of slipped under the radar. We didn't know that he was going to be on the show, or we didn't know about those charges when he got onto the show. But a lot of people are saying, TLC, are you sure? There's no way you knew. He even admitted to having a background of selling drugs. That's what he admitted on the show. So why didn't you dig a little deeper to ensure that what he was saying was true? But nonetheless, that's kind of what they go on to say. Now, the next story that we're going to get into, I'll bring it up for you guys. So the next story that we're going to get into is the case of Ahmaud Arbery. Now, this is a real controversial case, and I even debated whether or not to have this on the show, because me being a white guy, I'm probably going to get some backlash as to I don't have a place to talk about this because I'm white, or I'm in support of these guys who shot this guy down because I'm going to put it on the show. Well, don't be so quick to judge, and hear me out, and we're going to watch a bunch of things. But I was first introduced to this case by a girl on one of my social media timelines posted a quote from a woman named Abby Sham. She posted a quote, and I'll bring up the quote for you guys. Here's the quote. It says, so this is the quote. I'll read it out loud. "The America we live in is not safe. It is not just. It is not good. For much of my life, I didn't know this. I was safe in my homogeneous white communities, and I had the privilege of living with the illusion that all people are equal and treated equally by the justice system. It wasn't until I encountered different bodies, sexualities, religions that I came to know a different experience of America. The real and horrific America that allows blacks and brown bodies to be lynched, shot down, and incarcerated at staggering rates. This America is one where I worry for my husband's safety, where we get racial slurs thrown at us on walks in our neighborhood, where the simple act of jogging in the middle of day can lead to a person of color being considered dangerous to white folks and therefore worthy of being chased and shot down. It should not have taken 2 months for the news of Ahmaud Arbery's murder to be widely circulated. We cannot look away from the horror here. We must see it as the evil it is and grieve, lament, and repent. White folk, we need to become responsible to a system we can create and perpetuate by our privilege, ignorance, and silence." Now, this is the thing that I want to say about this particular post. It's hard for me. First off, this tragedy that has struck this gentleman and his family is quite sad. Regardless of the circumstances around it, death is never a good thing. Death. it's terrible, especially when someone is killed. You never want to see someone lose their life. Usually there's other ways to handle the situation. Some ways it may be warranted, that's another topic of discussion. But overall consensus of death is not a good thing. But what I had a problem with on this post is she says we must lament and repent. Now, me as a white guy, I don't feel responsible for these two white men on what they had done. So I don't feel the need to repent or feel guilty for what two men decided to do on their own recognizance. Now, this has nothing to do with, with me. I have nothing to do with this. I don't support it. I don't support white nationalism. I don't support people being racist. I don't support people treating someone differently just because of the color of their skin. I don't support any of that thing. So I will not feel guilty or feel that I need to repent for what somebody did in an isolated incident. Now, I will say this just to kind of point something out. If an African-American man runs into a convenience store and robs the store and says, he robs the store, runs out and gets the money, and I go, hey, all of these African Americans, these black guys should, they need to repent and be lament and grieve for these other African Americans who robbed the store. I don't feel that's right. I don't feel that that's right, that everybody should feel that they have something to do with one isolated incident where a guy who happened to be black robbed the store. That doesn't mean I get to blame all the other African Americans for what this guy did or what he took upon himself to do. So I don't agree with this whole repent narrative that this Abby Sham is trying to push. But she also goes on to say, I don't want to spend too much on that whole spiel, but you get my point. I don't want to say that I shouldn't feel made guilty or that I did something wrong, because I don't support any of this, and I don't feel that with these two men, whether they're guilty or not guilty, that I somehow should be responsible for their actions. That I just don't get that. But what we'll do is we're going to take a look at a clip here from what I wanted to do is kind of let some other people talk who are African Americans, because as a white guy, I don't know that my opinion will really matter or that I get a say in the matter. So we'll take a listen from a couple of black people who have this kind of their take on what's going on and what they believe is happening. But before we get into that, we'll play a clip here that I have where they had Ahmaud Arbery's family attorney, who's a civil rights attorney, on the show, and we'll play that here.
Counselor, this video that was released that shows Ahmaud apparently jogging through this neighborhood, our Martin Savage has reported this was in police hands in the days after the incident, yet it has taken 10 weeks, basically, to press charges. What do you think has taken so long?
Well, I believe it wasn't because they saw the video that they arrested this murderous duo, because they had the video on day one. It is because we saw the video and we demanded justice for this modern-day lynching in 2020 that the Georgia Bureau of Investigations finally arrested these killers so they would not continue to sleep in their beds every night peacefully.
What does it tell you, though, that they had this video and didn't press charges?
It tells you that we have two justice systems in America. One for Black America and one for white America. And until we can become the United States of America, where we respect everybody's life, where Ahmaud Arbery could get the same justice as if the roles were reversed.
So something I want to point out real quick, I don't necessarily agree with there's a justice system for white America and there's a justice system for Black America. My personal take on the situation, and I know this is a sensitive subject and it may not set right with people well, but I want you guys to understand that I'm not coming from a place of ill will or bad intent. This is just simply me trying to look at it from both sides of the spectrum here. But when you look at certain places like O.J. Simpson, who was a black man who seemingly a lot of people speculate that he got away with murder. That's an African American who allegedly killed somebody, and that he got away. There's other cases like that, not just a single OJ out, but there's plenty of cases like that where the evidence is what you have to focus on. You have to focus on the evidence. And now he does say, well, the reason why he believes that the charges were brought up in this case is because the video was released. Now, I didn't want to play the video on the show because I don't want to watch a video of a man being shot and killed. I've already seen the video, but I didn't want to play it on the show. If you want to find it, you can look it up for yourself. But I didn't want to play the video, and I didn't, it's a horrific video. I didn't want to see it. But you have to look at the evidence of the case. All we saw was a 20-second clip of allegedly Ahmaud running down a street. And then they say he was cornered and shot to death. There's going to be some more people after this video that kind of talk about that very thing, and I'll play those clips for you here in just a second. But let's just keep watching.
It was him and his father in a truck with a shotgun and a .357 Magnum and killed Greg McMichael's son in broad daylight, because we know without a shadow of a doubt they would have been arrested on day one. And so we want the same justice for Ahmaud Arbery.
So he goes on to say that, without a shadow of a doubt, if the roles were reversed, we know that they would have, because if it was a black guy who did this to a white man, they would have been arrested instantly. But I don't think it's fair to say that without a shadow of a doubt. That means you're 100% certain that that's how it would go. And I just don't find that to be accurate. You may have your own take on it, but that's just my personal opinion. I believe that you have to look at the evidence, and that's why we have a jury, because these are people who also get to look at the evidence and decide. Now, hopefully, I think this case is going to be very difficult because there's so much surrounding this case where the McMichaels was apparently a former cop and a former, I want to say district attorney. I could be wrong on that, but he has involvement with the police, so it's kind of convoluted. But it also brings to question, has he had any kind of complaints with racist rhetoric to them in the past? You have to look at those things because if he was a cop and he was an investigator, does he have this kind of issues where he had targeted African Americans in the past? That's something that they're going to bring up in court. But I'm not going to go so much on my opinion anymore. Hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from, and it's not a place of hate or taking up for the McMichaels, because ultimately at the end of the day, I don't believe Ahmaud deserved to lose his life that day. But there's a lot surrounding the case, and we're going to look at that. But the first person we're going to bring up here is Candace Owens. Now, I don't really care for Candace Owens too much. She kind of just gets on to run her mouth. But I wanted to get her take on this because she is African American, and I feel she's more equipped to speak on the issue, being black herself. So we'll just watch a little snippet here. We won't watch the whole thing of Candace. So let's take a look at that.
Hello, Facebook. Haven't done a video in a while, and I wanted to be sure to insert my opinion about this very viral case of Ahmaud Arbery, who is being dubbed as just a jogger by the media. And I just kind of want to talk about really just the media's role in propaganda and how upsetting it is to me that Black America always seems to take the bait. Like, I have to say, this case, after all of the work that I have done these last 3 or 4 years to wake Black America up to the fact that every election cycle there is some story that they perpetuate that is supposed to make us think that we are being chased by the Ku Klux Klan. And yet here we are, a couple of months away from an election, and there are Black people running around saying that we are being lynched in Georgia. So let's just start with just the case and how it's been being reported. So first, you are hearing that it is a modern day lynching. that should instantly, if you are a Black American and American, make your ears perk up a little bit, because there are not really modern day lynchings that are taking place in America. There are not lynchings taking place in general. I mean, even at the time, at the height of the civil rights movement, when Black people were actually being lynched, it was approximately 3,500 Black people that were lynched from the entire period of 1882 all the way up until 1968. All right, so that's actually a very low number relative, not saying that lynching is okay, obviously, but a very low number relative to the population that we had at that time, or the population that we had all the way up until 1968. So lynchings are not common in general. The idea that people are going around lynching people in 2020 America, you can already know and you can smell that something is wrong with the story. All right, so before I even saw the video, because I just was interested in the reaction to see how far people were going to take it, I saw that LeBron James issued a tweet, which quite frankly must have been the dumbest thing I have ever read. The tweet was that we are literally, we meaning Black people, we are literally being hunted as soon as we walk outside of our own homes. So this is either laugh out loud funny or really stupid. In my opinion, it's both. LeBron James doesn't even touch his own car door handles. LeBron James is currently building a multi-million-dollar, $100 million estate in Bel Air right now. And LeBron James has a white chef. He's got white housekeepers. LeBron James is somebody that has white people waiting on him hand and foot because he is successful and he has a lot of money, and that's what comes with money and success. So the idea that he is out there perpetuating some idea that Black Americans are literally being hunted for walking outside of their doors is pointedly ridiculous and should have made everybody go, okay, this is really dumb. So I finally look at the video. I'm expecting, based on all of the rhetoric, on all of the articles, which is saying that it's an example of a modern lynching, I am fully expecting to see a video of a mob of white people, maybe with a rope, maybe with some guns, just marching down the street towards a Black person so that they can kill him and make a mockery of him. That's what you should have expected based on the rhetoric that was perpetuating, and everybody was outraged left and right because of this 10-second clip. What I actually saw watching the video left me with more questions than answers.
So that's Candace Owens. I don't want to play the whole clip there because, you know, she's I don't always agree with her, even though she, I feel, has a better perspective on the issue, being that she's African American herself. So that's just her take on the situation. Now, the next clip I got here is a little bit longer. I know that we're getting towards the end of the hour here, so I'll try not to take up any more of your time here. We'll get to the final story of the night. But I just wanted to play a little bit of this gentleman's speech on the issue and what he believes is going on. So let's just take a look at that real quickly.
And how people are so gullible at times. I see people posted on their social media, still posting about Ahmaud Arbery and saying he was just jogging and got gunned down by two white people. The reason why people don't trust the justice system, in my personal opinion, is because they have no idea how laws work and the justice system and none of that. They have no idea how these things work. You have to be able to prove something. You can't just listen to one statement and say, yeah, that's the narrative. That's what happened. Can anybody prove that Ahmaud Arbery was jogging?
So this is what I want to bring up.
You cannot prove.
So he's saying that, you know, you can't prove that he was just jogging, and that may be true because all we have is that 20-second clip of him running. We don't know what happened before that. And there was calls to 911 made. There's a whole bunch of circumstances surrounding this whole case. Now, again, I'm not saying that they were just in their actions. That's for the court to decide. But what I'm trying to get at is we don't really know all of the evidence that surrounds this case, and you can't listen to one source that says this man was just jogging and you're supposed to believe that, because the only person that said he was jogging was his mother, who said he was just out jogging. You know, maybe he was. I'm not saying he wasn't, but there's been a lot of speculation around that.
That's going to be brought up in court, is that if he's on the jog, a 12-mile jog, a 5-mile jog, it doesn't appear to be consistent when you're wearing certain clothes that are not consistent with a jog. And people need to understand that these things are going to come up in court. And people are going to be sad when they've been jumping for joy that they got charged with murder, but they're not going to be able to prove first-degree, second-degree murder in a court of law.
So what he's referring to is I know we didn't get to see the whole bit there, but what he's saying is, where does Ahmaud live in relation to where he was jogging? Was he 20 miles away from his home? Was he 10 miles? That's something that's going to be brought up in court. Now, some people will say, well, it doesn't matter. He could jog anywhere he wants to. And, to a certain extent, that's right. But what they're going to probably do in the court of law, they're probably going to bring up a situation to say, well, why would he drive 20 miles to this neighborhood to run when along the way he passed 4 parks? One park had a track and field place to run. So why did he feel the necessity to go to this particular neighborhood to run? So that's just something that they're going to bring up into court. Now, I want to reiterate, I'm not justifying what happened. I'm only speculating that you have to look at it from a broader perspective and understand that you can't go by just what the court is saying and I don't like this whole racist narrative, because we don't know the facts of the case. You're only being told you're not looking at it from the whole aspect. You're just saying, oh, the news said racist white man gunned down a jogger, when we don't have any proof of that. But we'll keep watching a little bit of the rest of this clip here.
I personally don't believe they were charged because that people actually believe that they committed murder. They were charged because outrage, because political correctness. The prosecutor originally accused herself. The second prosecutor said that they were justified under that they were acting within the law under the citizens arrest laws. That was a prosecutor. The other prosecutor said that they need to convene a grand jury to determine if charges were to be brought. That makes sense to me. Convening a grand jury where you have both sides presenting a case, and then the grand jury says that there need to be charges against these individuals, that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is that because of people protesting, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations decided to charge them with murder. They didn't convene any testimony in the grand jury. They did none of that. They charged them with murder. And this is the knee-jerk reaction. The same thing happened with George Zimmerman. People started protesting, and they said he need to go to jail. George Zimmerman need to go. They rushed to charge George Zimmerman with murder. And the whole time, people knew that there was insufficient evidence to charge George Zimmerman with first-degree murder. But the mob wanted revenge. They don't want justice, they want revenge.
So that's kind of his take on it. Well, recently, he goes on to talk a bunch more about this and his personal opinion. I have the link in the video if you want to go watch his whole take on it. But basically, excuse me, he goes on to say that there's evidence that you have to consider. It's not just, you have to listen to what the media tells you. Think about this from the legal standpoint. What is the evidence? Well, recently, just last night, this video had come out pertaining to the case, and this was leading up to the moments that the McMichaels allegedly chased this man down. So we'll just play this quick clip, then we'll get into the last segment of the night and we'll wrap up the show.
Enforcement is reviewing video appearing to show Ahmaud Arbery in the moments before he died. This surveillance footage obtained by ABC affiliate First Coast News. A man enters this house under construction in the mostly white South Georgia neighborhood of Satilla Shores. Arbery's lawyers say they believe it's Ahmaud. Video from inside the home obtained by local station WJXT shows the man in a white shirt and khaki shorts looking around. The first 911 call coming in around 1:08 p.m.
The guy in the house right now. Is the house under construction?
Arbery's lawyers say he did not take anything or cause any damage, adding Ahmaud's actions were in no way a felony under Georgia law. The homeowner telling the Washington Post, "I've never had anything stolen from my property or any kind of robbery." According to his lawyers, Arbery's inside for under 3 minutes. The video seems to be sped up and slowed down in some places. Here you can make out two men getting into a truck. They're presumed to be Gregory and Travis McMichael, now charged with Arbery's murder. By 1:15 p.m., a second 911 call.
There's a black male running down the street.
When detectives arrived at the scene at 1:45 p.m., Arbery was dead. The McMichaels told police they thought Arbery was this man.
Did you feel the same way when...
Sorry about that. It went on to the next clip. But basically, you know, they found that this guy was trespassing on a property and... You know, they found out that this guy was trespassing on a property and, you know, they called the police and then they charged him with murder, which is in the court of law is presumed that it has to be premeditated. Now, that's going to be hard to prove, but there also is a case there because they went with guns on their person. So, I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on that. All I want to say is that look at everything from the whole aspect. Try not to push this whole racist rhetoric because I feel like that only continues the racial fires in this country. You know, we can't be unified until we start looking at things from the whole perspective, looking at everything from not just one standpoint. So it's just kind of something I wanted to bring up there. I would encourage you to go look out at that Brandon Tatum video, the guy with the red outfit that was speaking. If you watch his whole video, he kind of breaks down a lot about the case, and I think you'll find it interesting. But one of the final things we'll talk about is Elon Musk. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast. They kind of go talk about some of the issues surrounding the coronavirus pandemic. If you're familiar, Elon Musk has been doing a bunch of tweets saying, give back their freedom, give back their liberties, trying to get everybody... He wants everybody back to work, essentially, and he's even threatened to leave California, leave California and move somewhere like Texas or Nevada because of these restrictions and lockdowns. So let's just play a quick clip here from Joe Rogan's podcast with Elon Musk.
When CNN had that stupid shit about ventilators with you, I found that both confusing and
Yeah, that was annoying.
It was annoying.
It was wrong.
But it's also annoying as a person who reads CNN and wants to think of them as a responsible conveyor of the facts. I would like to think that.
Yeah. I don't think CNN is that.
I think it used to be.
It used to be, yeah.
So he's just going on to say he doesn't believe that CNN is a worthy place to find your information, but he's bringing up to a bigger point because there's been a lot of speculation around COVID-19 as to what is reliable information surrounding this pandemic and what is not reliable. He goes on to tweet this: classifying all deaths as corona, even if corona didn't cause the death, is simply a lie. Dr. Burke said it right on live TV on CNN. There's the clip there. I posted this clip down in the description as well, so you can check it out for yourself. But basically, we'll play the rest of the interview here. But basically, he's just saying that they're padding the numbers.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're rapidly moving towards opening up the country. It's going to happen extremely fast over the next few weeks. So something that would be helpful just to add from an informational level is when reporting sort of COVID cases, to separate out diagnosed with COVID versus had COVID-like symptoms.
Yes.
Because the list of symptoms that could be COVID at this point is like a mile long. So it's like hard to... If you're ill at all, it's like it could be COVID. So just to give people better information, definitely diagnosed with COVID or
had COVID-like symptoms. We're conflating those two, so that it looks bigger than it is. Then, if somebody dies, was COVID a primary cause of the death or not? I mean,
so the reason, just real quickly, the reason why I wanted to play this video is because Elon Musk could be considered, one of the smartest people in the world today. And I've seen a lot of statements being made about people who believe that all of these padded numbers, or if you're believe in opening the economy, you're ignorant and you're dumb. Well, this is a smart guy who's advocating for this. He's a CEO of a successful company, and this is what he's advocating. Now, yeah, some people may say he's biased because he has a company, but let's just keep watching.
I mean, if somebody has COVID, gets eaten by a shark, we find their arm has COVID. It's going to get recorded as a COVID death.
Is that real?
I mean, basically.
Not that bad, but heart attacks, strokes.
You get hit by a bus.
Cancer.
If you get hit by a bus, go to the hospital and die, and they find that you have COVID, you will be recorded as a COVID death.
Why would they do that, though?
Well, right now, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, it's mostly paved with bad intentions, but there's some good intention paving stones in there too. And the stimulus bill that was intended to help with the hospitals that were being overrun with COVID patients created an incentive to record something as COVID that is difficult to say no to, especially if your hospital is going bankrupt for lack of other patients. So the hospitals are in a bind right now. There's a bunch of hospitals they're furloughing doctors, as you were mentioning. If your hospital's half full, it's hard to make ends meet. So now you've got if I just check this box, I get $8,000. Put them on a ventilator for 5 minutes, I get $39,000. Or I got to fire some doctors. So this is a tough moral quandary. It's like what you can do. That's the situation we have.
So that's what they bring up there. I mean, that's just Elon's take on it. I just kind of wanted to bring that up, bring that to attention. But, I'm kind of trying to rush here a little bit because we're kind of over that 1 hour mark that I like to typically keep the show on. But the last thing that I want to bring up is daddy shamed. I've been shamed. Somebody attempted to call me out on my so-called hypocrisy. So I kind of wanted to talk about that real quick. So recently on my social media, I posted something that I posted a post. I'll read it off to you. The post says, "It's been a month and a half since I got to be with the love of my life," which I'm referring to my daughter. "I've had to make some difficult decisions and sacrifices during the virus, and one of those decisions was Kara and I had decided it was best not being able to see my daughter as I had to work and didn't want to bring anything to her, but it really makes me value that time a little bit more. I love this girl." So that's a picture of me and my daughter there. She means everything to me. But nonetheless, so I got a message from this person who I'm not going to name because I just don't want to give them that benefit. But I made a post about, being away from my daughter, and I was accused of being somewhat of a fake freedom fighter, if that's what you want to call it. That's not what I would specifically call it. But, I've been accused of being a hypocrite because how can I be in support of opening the economy if I decided to quarantine from my daughter for a month and a half? And he goes on to say, well, what kind of father would go away from his daughter for a month and a half? What kind of person would do that? And then you're also saying that you're for opening the economy. That doesn't make sense to me. Well, this is the deal that I want to get at. So my point on this whole situation is, you may question that. You may say, well, why would you quarantine if you're for opening the economy? If you watch all of my videos, I've never once said don't be smart about it, okay? Me personally, I work in a warehouse, okay? I have a warehouse job where there's over 1,000 employees. There's been confirmed cases of the coronavirus within my warehouse. But we're able to stay open. Do you know why we're able to stay open and still operate? Because they're following CDC guidelines. They're social distancing at work. They're making it mandatory that you stay 6 feet apart. They're making it mandatory that you wash your hands. They've included all these sanitizing stations around my workplace. And in addition to that, they've also require you to wear a mask to work. Now, the thing is, what I'm in support of is being smart while going through all of this, not being governmentally or mandated by the government on what to do. I don't support the government telling me how to live my life. I made the personal choice, along with the mother of my child, to basically we made the decision that, hey, since there's been confirmed cases at work, you're around a lot of people, let's hold off on it. That's a decision we made together, not because the government has told me that I need to make this decision. So that's where I had the problem, because I don't agree that people, it should be left up to the people how to proceed. You have guidelines from the CDC in which you are can follow or not follow. But my point is that you have these guidelines. You determine how you should proceed. So when I hear the guidelines, I say, yeah, that's a smart thing. We should follow those guidelines. I'll continue to do that. Does that mean I support locking down our country and closing down a bunch of jobs? Because like I said, the particular place that I work has over 1,000 employees, okay? And there's probably more than 500 people in the building at one time. And yet we're still able to open. You know why we're able to stay open is because they're following CDC guidelines. So that's all I'm saying. I follow the guidelines and I try to minimize the risk out there, but I don't believe that you have to shut down everything to do that, because the company that I work for is able to still stay open. They're able to practice social distancing. They're able to use sanitizing stations and say, hey, wear a mask to work. You're able to do all of these things to protect yourself, and it was decided by me and my ex that we would make that decision together, not mandated by the government. And that's why I made that decision. So, I mean, I'll leave it up for you guys to decide. My whole point is that I just don't feel like it's the government's place to tell us what to do. If they want to offer these guidelines and things that they want to say, hey, this is what you should be following, this is what you should do, I'm all for that. Never once in my videos have I said, should you be hugging and kissing on people, coughing next to people, doing irresponsible things. But I have advocated that you need to, sorry, I got distracted there, but I have advocated that, be smart about doing things when you go out into public, whether that's work or anything. So you can go out, do these things, and be smart. But enough of that. That's going to be the end of the show for tonight, guys. I know we ran over way too late. I didn't even get in to do all the things that I wanted to cover. So I apologize for that, but thank you for tuning into tonight's episode. I know it was kind of probably a little duller than you expected, but personally, I think there's some really important stuff in there to think about. Also, next week, we will have a guest on. Her name is Allison Pena. Her name is Bad Widow. She's a lifelong New Yorker from Manhattan. She has a wonderful story to kind of talk about, but she has faced some pervasive, I'll read a little snippet here that I pulled from her. It says, as a widow, she's faced pervasive assumptions that she was broken by her loss, perhaps forever. Allison discovered she didn't know who she was without him, and people who supported her stepped up, stepped back, or stepped out. As a result, she was isolated and lonely but could not find the resources to answer her challenge, so she created them. She began her website, badwidow.com, and it resonated with people in similar situations. She is unafraid of ruffling feathers and having provocative conversations on life and death. Her Bad Widow brand is vulnerable, transparent, brave, and inspiring. So we're going to have her on next week to talk about how you can bounce back from this pandemic financially, emotionally, all of that stuff, how to bounce back, and she's going to give us some great insight to that. So that'll be next week with Allison Pena. Again, I'm kind of just rushing here to get everybody off and on their way. So thank you for tuning in. You can check us out on iTunes, Spotify, Anchor FM, YouTube, and Facebook. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in to another episode. We'll see you next week on Monday at 7 p.m. Enjoy your night.